What's up, Overcome fam? My name is Genesys. I'm the founder of Overcome, and today we have something for you. I have my friend Darilyn here, and she is a rock star for the kingdom, but she's been through some things, just like a lot of you, and we're going to be touching on a few things that not a lot of people want to talk about, and we're going to be talking about mental health and military. Mental health in the military, mental health as a whole. So, welcome.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Are you ready?
Yes.
All
Ready.
right.
Let's do it.
So, your testimony was nothing short of amazing. And I've been with you through a lot of these things, you and your daughter, and it has been a crazy, crazy year and some change.
Yeah.
But we are going to go in and we're going to talk about the day, March 24th, and we're going to just dissect it and really talk to those people that don't talk about this enough.
Yeah.
So March 24th, very, very hard day.
Yeah.
I remember getting a text message from you. I remember walking through that with you and just pleading with the Lord.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about after that. Let's go into Abir's life and really honor him for who he was. He was an incredible man. So let's talk about how he truly did fight, because there's a lot within mental health that people say, especially in the military, where they don't necessarily fight for themselves, but they do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, Abir definitely, he fought. I think that sometimes when I share with people, they think, well, was this just a surprise? Like, did you see it coming? And prior to, him taking his life on March 24th, he did have 3 previous attempts. And so, it was something that he always struggled with. He struggled with depression from an early age, and it definitely intensified, through the military and as he became a young adult. But he fought. He fought, and he was actually in an intensive care treatment for about, I want to say it was almost 2 years. And he talked to pastors and he talked to counselors, and we had a community of people like surrounding us, and he was an avid writer, and he would write out, in his journals about just his struggles. And so I saw him fighting. I saw that desire for him to overcome this struggle in his life, but it was hard for him. It was really difficult for him. And yeah, I think, for a lot of people, there is shame. And for Abir, he was that person that was just, he would light up a room. He was really funny, super witty. And I don't think people really knew unless they knew him and he opened up that part of himself that he was struggling. He didn't let just anybody in that part of his life. And so I think that there were times where he was struggling, alone and suffering in silence. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am going to restart this, but in the beginning, because I want to know who Abir is.
Okay.
If I've never met him before, which I actually didn't, but I feel like I do know him now.
Yeah.
Who is Abir?
Okay. So he was super smart, hard worker, he had a way of loving people, and I really gleaned that from him, his way of like making someone feel like they'd known him for a long time. He was, funny, super witty, like so quick with his jokes. I could never like compete with that. He was the funny one out of the 2 of us for sure. But yeah, he just loved people. He loved people, and he had a way with people. And if you would pop up on his mind, like you would get a call from him, random call, just like, hey, like I was thinking about you.
Oh, gosh.
And okay, wait, are we?
Keep going.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good.
Am I restarting now?
Nope, right there.
Okay. And yeah, if you would get a call from Abir, like you popped up on his mind and he was going to give you a call and, just to check up on you. That's the person that he was, he didn't have a hard time pressing into people and relationships. And he cared a lot about others. So, yeah.
And he cared a lot about Eliana. I feel like it's one of those things where we're like, especially as moms, we carry the baby, we do all the things, and they like love their father.
Yeah.
So he was an incredible dad.
He was, yeah, for sure. Like he was from the moment that she was born. He was hands-on. He like changed more diapers than I did.
Amen.
I feel like the
Amen.
first year he really did. Like he was so hands-on. He would wake up every time she would cry, and he loved her so much. He wanted to be a dad. I think he always wanted to be a dad, and yeah, he loved her a lot.
And he was an incredible dad. Even when he was away, he was stationed away multiple times, and he still did what he could.
Yeah, he went on. Well, while she was born, it was I think one deployment. Yeah, after she was born, and then trainings. He was always gone, like in trainings. But he did. You know, she had her little daddy doll that she'd carry around with her, and he just loved her so much. He did. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Especially as someone who's always on tour and like away from her, to really make sure. And I know Eliana, and she did love her dad so much. That talk about it a lot. Something that you mentioned in your testimony specifically, which I feel like I've never heard something that actually hits home more than this. And Abir said it, and he said, depression is like arthritis. It's a pain that never goes away.
Yeah.
Talk about that, with especially having that, dealing with the mental health in your marriage too, and having seen it firsthand. What did that look like for him?
Yeah, so I still remember that day. We were in the car, we were driving, and I remember asking him, can you just explain, like, what it's like? Because I had never really dealt with depression to that degree, right? I've had bad days, bad seasons, but for him, it was deep, and it was heavy. And so I remember asking him, can you explain to me, like, what is it like? And he told me it's like this darkness that he was familiar with, and going to this place sometimes was all that he knew, right? So growing up, like, he struggled with depression from a young age, and for him, you know, when he told me that, I mean, it was really impactful, and I remembered it. Yeah, that depression is like arthritis. The pain just never goes away. That painted like a vivid picture for me in that moment of, wow, you know, this is a constant battle that he's facing. And this is so much deeper than just like, oh, I'm having like a bad day and I can't get over this, or, oh, like, no, like I'm trying, like I'm fighting every single day to see the light, you know? And I think that's what it was for him. Like he was trying so hard, but there were so many parts of him, and you know, that desire of like, I don't want to live, you know, I don't want to live. And he would often tell me, you know, Eliana is like a big reason why I'm still hanging on. And that was really hard to hear. Like as a wife, like that's so hard to hear, you know, you don't want to ever think of your child losing their father, or you losing like your spouse, you know, you don't, it's like, oh my gosh, like we need to fix this, and we need to fix it now, you know? And, yeah, it was really hard.
It's not something that you can fix.
No,
like,
not at all.
And walking through it, and I can't even imagine how you felt just seeing your husband and Eliana's father just walking through these days and just feeling like there isn't anything that you could have done. But I know confidently, in knowing who you are, like how much you fought for him alongside of him, and you fought for Eliana, and the things that you guys got to see and kind of experience with that. And so talking through like where you were at with that, because not that it's necessary, but there's people that they're in it, and they're in it for the long haul, and they're trying, and their spouse just pushes them away over and over again. And you guys were separated because of a lot of that. And you wanted to follow God. You wanted to have a better life for Eliana. Not saying that he was ever a bad dad, but he fought so hard. And sometimes it just like takes the oxygen out of the room. So how did God really pull you and Eliana through in those 2 years of just separation?
Yeah, just to touch on that point, you know, it definitely like, man, my heart goes out to like wives or husbands that are dealing with the person that they love that's battling depression. I remember one time being in the kitchen, and Abir, he was just going through it. And I remember like we were just in the middle of conversation, like just you and I, and he was talking to me, and his eyes would just close. And I remember grabbing his face, like, what's going on? Like, how can I, just so desperate, you know? And he would just tell me, you don't understand. Yeah. You don't understand, you know, and just he was fighting to like even be here. And you're so right. Like, as a wife, it's not my job to fix, and I can't, and I pleaded with the Lord, for him. That's what I did. I spent a lot of times just like praying for him and, sharing with him what the Lord was showing me, and just loving him, really loving him, right? The word says that, the three things that remain are faith, hope, and love. And the greatest is love. Our faith one day will come to sight. Our hope will be reality. But love is something that will always, remain. And that is the greatest gift that God gave us, was his love through his son.
Yeah,
and so it's
good.
so powerful to love someone when they're going through it, to ask questions, to listen to them. And that's what I tried to do, was to love him through it, Yeah.
So you said in your vulnerability, in your testimony, and we didn't actually get to even talk about the separation, but that was something that God really walked you through, and that's where I met you. So fun fact, I totally stalked you on Instagram for a long time in advance, and you in Hawaii would share so much about who God was in your life, and how even being vulnerable in the depths of that. And I would watch you on Instagram, and people would send me your videos, and I was like, who is this girl? I want her faith. And like a lot of what you said in your like trenches, in your rut, in Hawaii, like watching Abir suffer, no one would know, because you truly looked to God to trust for like you and Eliana. You constantly pointed everybody else back to God when you were in it. Like, that's why I call you a warrior, and you are just an amazing woman. But from there, like, where did you get the courage to keep looking at God when you could see like the things around you, and like being in the military, and you could see your husband suffering, and you could see, because Abir wasn't the only person in the military that's ever struggled with this.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm sure that you've been around people who you have seen and known even that have struggled or are still struggling with that. So how did you really look at God in the midst of this and say, like, God, you're still good, even though these people are like struggling with this and leading so many people?
Yeah. I mean, we were on this like little island, on Oahu, and no family at all. And, I think there was just such a sense of like community being there. We're all in the same boat. The guys are gone. They're in training or on deployment, and the wives just kind of band together. And so I think through that time, the community of people that I had, the believers that I had in my life, but it was even sometimes just like looking out the window and seeing the beautiful mountains and the ocean,
Creation.
and I would just weep, because it's like, God, like, how can I not see you? You're all around me, especially in this beautiful island. And I was walking so close with the Lord in that time, and He's all that I had. I mean, he really is just all that I had, and I relied on him, and I stayed in the word. Like, that is what fed me. I stayed in the word, and I just feasted on the word, and I surrounded myself with believers, and, listened to worship music, and I just drenched myself in Jesus as much as I could, and he is the one that gave me the strength. I mean, truly, like, when you have nothing to give, but you pour yourself into the Lord and serving others, really taking your eyes off of yourself and putting your eyes onto others, and seeing where there's a need, where you can serve. There's power in that. There's so much power in that, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah. And you are such a servant. Oh my gosh. I love it so much about you. And so after Abir had passed, I had the privilege to be there with you and to walk in, and when he got here, and how he was honored, that was amazing. And the way that you honored him continually, and the people around you. But there are parts that people don't talk about too. And it is in that grieving, and it's in the mourning, and it's in the things that you're like, okay, I know he fought. Like, regardless of how he is not here anymore, he fought so hard. And he was all of these things that we can talk so highly and like still honor him. And just seeing his life and so many things that you got to experience afterwards of who he was in those years that you didn't necessarily know him or see him every day. But into the process of you grieving and mourning, which is such like a negative thing, but you found so much positivity in it. Talking about those times where you like literally had nothing but like a shriek, and like, God, no matter what, I love you and I trust you, but this sucks, and telling Eliana and these things, but you
yeah.
said, I don't understand, but I'm going to trust you.
Yeah.
Like, that is a bold and vulnerable statement to say to the Lord in this thing that's around you that feels like the world's crumbling down and you can't breathe. Even you say this. So what did that look like for you to be able to say that when these things were happening?
Yeah. I think like I realized, okay, this is part of my story. I have two choices. I can walk through this with God, or I can walk through this without God. And I choose to walk through this with God. He has been so faithful to me. He has been so good to me. How could I not? How could I not? Like, and it really, I had to depend on him. Like a child literally depends on their parents. Like that's what it was, and it was one step, one foot in front of the other. And there was time where I'm like, Lord, I want the healing now. I want everything to be restored right now.
Yeah,
like, please, I don't want to suffer, but like grieving is not a negative thing. Jesus grieved, and we see that in scripture where he grieved and he needed to go away. And he did, and he grieved, the loss of a friend, and that's okay. We can take that time, but what does he do right after that? He fed the multitude of 5,000, and he served, and so yes, like we will have seasons where we need to grieve, whether it's the loss of a person or a relationship, whatever it may be. It's okay to take that time to grieve, but then you don't stay there. What do you do next?
So good.
You take what the Lord has shown you and you go and you love others. That's the key.
Always going back to other people.
Yeah.
Of course you would. So what did it look like for you daily? Because I know now you're a mom, and mourning that, and how we talked about how much Eliana loved her dad and still loves her dad, and how he loved Eliana. But what did that look like daily for you? Or even like sometimes it's seconds and minutes, and you can't stop being a mom just because of what's happened. So aside from having to tell Eliana, we'll talk about that, but what did it look like for you daily?
Yeah, it was hard. It's like some days it was just trying to survive, really just taking it day by day. Some days it was just, okay, Lord, like I'm waking up and I'm doing the same thing. A lot of it is just like the mundane going through the motions, but then there would be some days where someone would just show up with a meal or just like send me a text that was super encouraging or, pour into me. And that kept me going. Like God gave Eliana and I what we needed, like our daily bread. He literally, he really did. He gave us what we needed every day. And he loved us through his people. And again, that was sometimes through meals or just through meeting up with people, conversations. Y'all came over one time, and brought food over and just loved on us. Like, that's what it was. It was just every day, little by little, step by step, and, clinging to him. And sometimes that looked like clinging to him in tears through prayer. Sometimes that looked like reading a piece of scripture and just really like chewing on that for the day, or just like taking Eliana to the park and praying that there would be a friend that she would meet, and God would be faithful. And that happened. God put so many people in our lives that are not necessarily like in our lives right now, but that we needed for, let's say, like that month, or the next 3 months. And there was a purpose for them, and they loved us, and we needed them, and God was faithful to bring those people in our lives. And I'm just, it's amazing. It really is when I look back and I see like he gave us what we needed at the exact time. Yeah.
And mourning looks different to everybody. And I want to just really briefly talk about that, because there is also this thing of like, well, I can't feel it right now because I have to be strong. I can't do this right now because I need to do this. And you had literally so many things that you had to plan immediately with being a military wife and getting him all the way here from Hawaii to Florida, and the process and the people and the family and all of these things. And it doesn't always look like, hey, today I cling to the Lord. Sometimes it looks like what you said of like, being on the bathroom floor with a bottle of wine. Like, let's talk and like normalize that grieving and mourning process, or what it looks like, so that no one feels like, hey, today I have to wake up and be strong, and I definitely can't cry, and I definitely can't like walk away from people, and I have to answer every text and accept every meal and actually eat. You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah, there are some days where I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to cook, or I didn't want to like be a mother that day. I'm just like, I just want to stay in bed and cry. But yeah, there were times where that day, that I spoke about, where I just went onto the bathroom floor after drinking like an entire bottle of wine and throwing it up, and just like crying, and like crying out to God. There were no words even coming out. I was just weeping and crying, and just, I remember like repeating, like, God, like, where are you? Like, Lord, why? And that's what that looked like in that moment. And God, he met me there. Like, we can take that to him. He wants all of it. And we see that throughout the Psalms with David. Like, Lord, where are you? Where are you? Like, there's this desperation of like, have you abandoned me? Have you left me? And it's in scripture because God wants us to know that we can bring that to him. It's okay, And so, yeah, there were moments that didn't look pretty. There were moments where I was, crying or upset, or, Eliana would have, like, that's really what would really trigger me, is seeing her like crying and wanting her dad. That's so hard as a mom to watch that. So yes, there were moments where I would have to step away and just close the door and just like scream.
And
like,
it's
why?
okay.
Yeah. And it's okay. It's okay to, this life it's hard. Like, that is the one thing that Jesus tells us, like, in this life, you will have trouble.
Yeah.
You will have trouble, right? But then it says, take heart, I have overcome the world.
Come on.
You know?
Absolutely.
So,
So now going into the day that you told Eliana, because this is another one that in our mourning and in our grief, we can make mistakes, and we always want to capture the heart of our children and make sure that we're steering them closer to the Lord in the right way. But this is a really hard thing that was not immediate.
Yeah.
And you did tell her, what you said, that he was sick or he wasn't available right now, something like that.
So I took 2 days to really like, okay, process, how am I going to tell her this, right? This is huge. Her birthday was coming up and she was looking forward to him being there. And so I remember kind of in those 2 days, I prepped her, and we talked about death, right? And what death looks like, and what death looks like for the believer, right? And that there's hope. And so we chatted about that, and then there was a group of people that they were there when I told her, and we went to a park, okay, and it was advised to me to go somewhere that she had no like ties to, just a completely random place.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we went with this group of people, and they just loved on her and hugged her, and I pulled her aside. And that's when I told her, it is like by far like the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I mean, I don't even like thinking about it, because it was just so heartbreaking seeing her face. Just like what she said, just a disbelief and the shock, Yeah, it's just something that I don't wish on any parent.
Yeah.
And it was really hard, Yeah.
I cannot personally imagine, but like I've said and will continue to say, I've had the privilege and honor to be able to watch you just walk through this, even with Eliana, and how strong you both are, and how the Lord continued to equip you and continued to give you the strength and the determination and the zeal to wake up when you didn't want to, and to get up and to be a mom, and for Eliana to hold that dad bear, and for her as a child to truly walk through every day. And she carries such a joy about her no matter what, and to kill it on the soccer team and to do all the things that she does and be spunky and courageous, like that comes from you as her mom. Just
absolutely.
continuing to carry her and push her through. And I just want to give you credit where credit is due, and make sure that you know how amazing you are. And I want to ask you a question that is the way that we're going to end every podcast. And it is, if you could give a piece of advice to a spouse that is currently walking through mental health, not only within the military, but just in general, what would you say to them?
First I'd say, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone. There's so many people struggling with this and through this. And just to keep fighting. It is not your job to fix. It is not your job. That is not your burden to carry. Okay? Jesus says, come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden. I will give you my yoke, which is easy, my burden, which is light. So give that burden to the Lord. Fight your fights in prayer. And ask questions. Looking back, I wish I would have asked Abir more, right? There's this woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
But I wish I would have asked him more questions, because I think when you do that, you posture yourself in a way where you want to learn, where you don't want to, give advice. You just want to listen. You just want to learn. I want to see, what you're going through. And I did try and do that, but I would have asked more questions. So I'd give that advice. Just listen, ask questions, reach out for help. You cannot do this on your own. Like, you can't. You need community. You need people to surround you. You need people to pour into you, because it gets exhausting. It gets so exhausting. And you need brothers and sisters to walk hand in hand with you, to help you, to love on you, to pray for you. You need that. So invite people into this, and don't fight this alone. That's what I would say.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And if this is you and this is something that you are currently going through, Darilyn talks about it openly on her Instagram and how encouraging she is, and did not shy away from glorifying God through it, but also was able to talk to somebody else who's struggling with it, who has been there, who has walked through it, or going through the process, and you can see that. And so I encourage you, if this is you and this spoke to you, please go over to her Instagram, Darilyn Pinchardo, whatever it is, you can find her, but you will find her and you can talk to her. And she is an open book, because she is a person, just like she's continually said, that is a servant, and that will walk with you, and that just fosters community regularly in her heart, and does not want anyone to ever have to struggle through this alone at all. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being vulnerable, and for telling Abir's story.
Thank you. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. I appreciate you so much.